Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I decided to talk about my newest deck. I put this together because I own this card. That's Laelia, the blade reforged, and if it would focus, I'm sorry, it's not focusing properly, but the card basically is 3 CMC, is a 2/2 with haste, and it says whenever she attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. Whenever you exile one or more cards from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Laelia. I want to say it's Laelia. She's a spirit warrior. Spirit warrior. Not just a regular warrior, she's a spirit warrior. But so I really just like the card. I thought it was like a really interesting mechanic to make a deck based on exiling the top of my library or cards from a graveyard and making her get powerful. It's semi-Voltron-y, but not super Voltron-y. But the inspiration was this card, but also, and you're gonna think it's silly, but part of the inspiration of the deck was because I own Valakut, like the promo version, and I just really wanted an excuse to use the card. I was like, fuck, it's sitting in my binder. I don't have a use for it. And I was like, if I build a mono red deck though, I can have multiple uses for it. And then also, I have Vesuva, it's the from the Vault's Realms edition, and I've been wanting to use this card for a very long time. And I was like, what's better than make a copy of Valakut? Then there's 2 Valakuts, and then I just kind of go off with all the other mountains. All the other lands in my deck don't really matter. Most of them are just mountains and like a few extra things, but honestly, like it's like mostly just mountains. Excuse me, I'm just gonna keep shuffling this for a moment because I just really love that sound. But to give you an idea of what the deck does is just a lot of cards that exile the top cards of my library. You know, I've got Apex of Power that, exiles the top 7 cards, and it gives me 10 mana if I cast this from my hand. Stuff like that. I also have cards with flashback. That way I can exile it from my graveyard, and then it pumps up Laelia. I even have cards with Delve, just so that I can exile cards from my graveyard. But the point of the deck mostly is just exile the top cards of my library, make her really big, and then just swing for lethal with her. I do need to put a Rogue's Passage in this. I played a game with her and she did not do that well because I could not get through. But it was still fun and neat to build this deck and play it. Some of the key things also, I forgot to mention, I also put Cascade effects into this deck because I figured that since I'm cascading and cascading exiles the top card of my library, that it would pump up Leilani, and it's free casting, so like, 2 birds, 1 stone. I put the Aurora Phoenix into this deck as well, so then I could cascade. Let's see. Another mechanic that I put into this deck was Escape. I need an Ox of Igonus for this deck, but right now I've got the Phoenix of Ash. I figured that if I'm exiling cards from my graveyard to replace them for the escape cost, it would help out my commander, I have a lot of things that, let me exile the top card of my library to play it as well. Things like Dockside Extortionist. That's such a fun word. Extortionist. But Don't extort people, because extorting people is wrong. To ramp me up, I haven't figured out my curve yet, but I also have this stuff like felled into the third path, so then I can exile my creatures from my graveyard and make tokens of it. Once again, pumping up my commander, you know? Let's see. I have things like, oh, that's fun. The Ifrit Flame Painter, that when it deals damage, I can cast an instant or sorcery from my graveyard and exile it from the graveyard. That way I can take advantage of the trigger of my commander. Now I do feel like I do need more instants and sorceries because I only have these many, and that's not a lot, honestly. That's just not enough. And I do need to switch some things around, but I also have things like Ignite the Future with Flashback, so that I can free cast things that I exile from the top of my library. This is a neat card too. Creative Technique with the Demonstrate. I think Demonstrate is such a neat mechanic, and it's such a cool mechanic that really plays really well with that group hug kind of idea, and I'm a fan of that. I also put in Brass's Bounty because I thought that getting more treasures is neat. I kind of wish that I had a way to abuse a treasure mechanic. Maybe there's a commander that I can, or a card that, like, whenever you sack treasures, but something happens. But I have to figure that out still. This is just the beta stages of the deck. There's a lot of cards in this deck that I'm still kind of like the Stormkirk Oculist. I'm just like, you know, like, I have to deal damage to get the effect, and I'm just one of those things where it's like, am I gonna get Drew really? I don't know if I will, you know? So I also wish there was cards that let me pull things from exile, because I've played a game with it, and I just felt like there's a lot of times where it's like I would exile a card and be like, fuck, I can't play that. What am I gonna do? You know? And now I lost a card. Ooh, another mechanic that I tossed in here was Encore. I thought that the whole exiling creatures from my graveyard would be kind of neat. I was also thinking to figure out ways to like self-mill, but it's also like in red. It's kind of hard to self-mill in my opinion. And this is a classic, Grim Lava Monster. I'm using that to the advantage, Chef's Kiss. But yeah, that's my deck so far. Like I said, I'm still working out the bugs and trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work for the deck. If you have any suggestions, I'll be more than happy to hear them out. I love suggestions. If you ever want to talk about Magic, go to my comment section and we can talk. If you have ideas, give me ideas. I love talking about Magic. It's my whole personality. Well, thanks. Y'all have a good one.